Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Daily Noose with Tim Lynch. I'm Tim Lynch. So today might be the longest episode we've ever done. So for those of you who've been asking for longer episodes, you're welcome. For those of you who have a little trouble with the longer episodes, maybe a bit of TikTok generation issue, take your time, maybe watch a couple minutes, go do something else, run around on a hamster wheel or something, then come back and keep watching. But in the meantime, this is important because I think this is our best episode yet. So today, we're going to talk about politics' worst kept secret. And that is Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. has a cognitive problem. I know. Thanks. We're going to spend the longest time talking about his cognitive problem. We are. But what's really important is it doesn't matter. Why am I bringing this up now? Well, there's been yet another video with yet another Biden gaffe. And I think it's important because one, it's timely. And two, it's important. We've got an election coming up and that election does matter. And I think as you go through this, you'll see why it's important we talk about this now. So without further ado, let's start doing some videos. So one of the first videos I'm going to show you is not new, actually. It's an older video where it looks like Biden might be pooping his pants. This was several months ago. It was on the White House lawn. And, well, just watch.
Would you release the transcript?
Okay, so did he poop his pants? I don't know. Maybe. He certainly looks like any toddler that is walking around doing its thing and then just stops and has to let loose. So unclear. But let's get to the next video, and this is the timely one. So this just occurred. This is when Biden was at the 80th anniversary of the invasion of Normandy. And while on stage, there's a video, and it looks again like he's pooping his pants. And I will tell you, the first time I watched this, I was like, oh my God, he's pooping his pants. Let's watch.
Distinguished guests, please welcome the Honorable Lloyd J. Austin.
Okay, so did he poop his pants? Again, when you first look at it, certainly looks like it, but I actually saw some other angles or more extended view. I actually don't think he did. So to me, while it looked initially like the first video, if you keep watching, it looks like he's just having trouble sitting down. So let's play another video and look at that again.
Distinguished guests, please welcome the Honorable Lloyd J. Austin III, Secretary of Defense of the United States of America.
Okay, so for the most part, it looks like he wasn't releasing his bowels. It looks like he just had problems sitting down. And so you might say, haha, see, he's not pooping his pants. I was like, okay, well, yeah, if you're looking at the trees, you are right. He's not pooping his pants. But I'm looking at the forest and I'm looking at a guy who doesn't even know how to sit down. Mind you, there are toddlers who do not know how to use the bathroom and do, in fact, poop their pants. And they know how to sit in a chair, and he does not. So I don't think it's quite the victory some people may think it is. But it's not just that. These aren't the only issues. We've seen too many videos probably to count about how Biden has difficulty speaking. So let's look at a few of those. So this first one was about 10 months ago. Biden was meeting with the president of Israel. And you'll see him, he's sitting in his chair, and it looks like he's just reading off of notes, kind of mumbling. It's very hard to hear what he's saying. He almost looks like he's asleep. So watch that, see how bad he looks, but also even look at the president of Israel. He's looking around like, what is going on here? Am I on like a candid camera show or something? Is this a joke? It's really telling. So let's roll that one out.
And we brought Israelis and Palestinians together at a political level and Aqua and as well as Shram. Yes. And as I affirmed to Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday.
All right. Doesn't look good. I'm going to show you another video. Probably doesn't even sound as bad, but he just kind of goes off the rails a little bit. But the reason I show this one is because his handlers actually cut him off. It's like you're on stage performing poorly, at the vaudeville act, and the big cane comes out and pulls you off stage. It's like they just completely shut down the whole thing and said, nope, you're off, which is telling enough because it already shows that this is not a new entity. This is something they're used to dealing with, and they already have a plan to deal with it. But also look at Biden. He just acquiesces. He just kind of settles down. Like, oh, okay, bye-bye. So watch this one. It's again telling.
We talked about at the conference overall. We talked about stability. We talked about making sure that the third world, the Southern Hemisphere had access to change. It had access. It wasn't confrontational at all.
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. So pretty much as billed, right? But I'm going to show you another one. And this is one where, he's actually speaking fairly clearly, but I don't know where he's going. So initially he starts talking about the ages of family members with, by the way, very poor math. And then he just completely takes a left turn at Albuquerque and starts talking about his wife just out of nowhere. It's kind of like that scene in Airplane when the plane's going all over the place and they're in the towers and they're looking at the radar and they're saying, he's at 10,000 feet. He's at 15,000 feet. He's at 2,000 feet. And then someone else goes, he's all over the place. And the other guy goes, what an asshole. So anyway, watch this. He's all over the place.
My younger sister used to be 3 years younger than me. Now she's 23 years younger. There's not a single solitary Biden man that is younger than any Biden woman. And my wife, by the way, at a community college, my wife is teaching today. My wife is a full-time college professor at a community college.
Okay, so I'm going to show you one more. You kind of, I owe it to you. I didn't show you any videos at the last podcast. So this one's very short, very sweet, but it just brings it all home. And it's a classic, and a lot of you have probably already seen it, but it just shows you the inability to speak at all. So let's throw that one out.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Okay, so by the way, there are many more videos of this inability to speak. I'm not going to show you anymore. And you may say, well, sure. I mean, the guy speaks all of the time. If anyone speaks all of the time, you will always find a misspeak or mumble or something else. And of course, that's very true. I don't know how many times I have to pause and think about what I'm going to say here. But it's not just me handpicking things. It happens all the time. It's beyond the pale of what should happen. But there's also some objective looks to it, right? So it's not just that people see him with a poor speaking ability. It's literally enough to show his cognitive mentation that people think he can't stand trial. It wasn't, I guess, more than a couple of months ago when he was being investigated for mishandling classified documents. Remember, so they said, oh, Trump's evil. He held on to some documents, which I won't get into presidential privilege or not. That's beyond the scope of this. But apparently Biden did the same thing as vice president. So when they were investigating that, they had Robert Hur, who was the special counsel, and he did a series of interviews with Biden. And basically it was his recommendation that he testified about his February report. And he recommended no criminal charges against Biden, despite concluding that the president had on some occasions willfully held onto classified documents from his time as president. Now, I don't know about you. There's all kinds of reasons why cases aren't taken to trial. But willful disregard of the law is usually not one of them. So you may think, why is this not going to trial? Well, Special counsel asserted at the time that the president would be unlikely to be convicted by a jury in the event he ever went to trial, writing that he would, quote, likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview with him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. That was the quote. Elderly man with a poor memory. So that's not just me nitpicking things. This is special counsel spending hours with him and realizing he just doesn't know what he's talking about. Now, why is this in the news all again? Because this wasn't all that new. This was months ago, and we have the transcripts. There's nothing in there. Because right now, the Republicans are trying to get the audio transcripts of her interaction with Biden. And the left is saying, "Oh, we can't do that. You know, we're citing executive privilege. We can't let those tapes be released, or audio files. I'm sure they're not tapes." So in an N article, this was from AP News. Garland separately advised Biden in a letter made public Thursday that the audio falls within the scope of executive privilege, which protects the president's ability to obtain candid counsel from his advisors without fear of immediate public disclosure and to protect confidential communications relating to official responsibilities. The correlate of that is, or the response, I should say, is that Representative Harriet Hageman from Wyoming said, quote, "There is no reason for AG Garland to withhold the audio or for Biden to invoke executive privilege to keep the tapes hidden from the public. What is so damning in the audio that this administration is afraid to release them," she added. So you may be thinking, all right, I keep hearing this term, but what exactly is executive privilege? So for you, I went on www.justice.gov and brought up the typed description of executive privilege. You can see this kind of here. And then I will zoom in. And justice.gov says, simply stated, executive privilege is the term applied to the invocation by the executive branch of a legal right derived from the need for confidentiality of its internal communications and the constitutional doctrine of separation of powers to withhold official documents or information from compulsory processes of the legislative branch. Basically, if there's national secrets that they have to, for the safety of the country, not disclose, they're allowed to say, hey, there's some secrets here. But obviously this is not the case, right? Biden's transcripts are all typed out, so there is no information we don't have. What we don't have is how he said it. Did he mumble? Did he take too long? So that's the key, and that's what they're trying to hide. So that is obviously not something that you can hide behind for executive privilege. Okay, so what do we got here? So Biden can't control his bowels. He can't speak appropriately, and he can't remember anything appropriately. So what does he have? And that's where everybody says, he's got Alzheimer's. That's what I've been trying to tell you. He's got Alzheimer's. And he may. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say he certainly has a dementia, but it may not be Alzheimer's. At which point, many people will say, what do you mean? Alzheimer's is dementia. Well, and we're going to get a little geeky here. Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. So a dementia is a neurodegenerative process where basically the brain starts breaking down chronically over time, and you start losing cognitive faculties and eventually other faculties as well. And Alzheimer's is just one type of dementia. It's the most common type of dementia. But obviously, there are other types of dementias. There's frontal temporal dementia. So you may ask, well, how do you know what he has? How do you make these diagnoses? And essentially, the type of dementia you have is based on what's going on microscopically. What's the neuropathology? What are the abnormalities in the brain that are causing this to begin with? And where are they occurring in the brain? So the top two dementias are Alzheimer's and frontal temporal dementia. Now, Alzheimer's dementia is noted and really only fully diagnosed on autopsy because you have to look at the brain under a microscope, where you have neuritic plaques and neurofibrillary tangles. So neuritic plaques are composed of proteins called A-beta peptides. Neurofibrillary tangles are proteins, are tau proteins. And for the most part, in the brain. These plaques and tangles start with Alzheimer's typically in the temporal lobes. So you've got the brain. It's pretty much the same on the right and left mostly. And you've got different lobes. You've got the frontal lobes at the front. You've got the temporal lobes near the temples, occipital lobes, et cetera. But in Alzheimer's disease, that pathology tends to strike the temporal lobes first. And the temporal lobes function a lot in memory. So when you've got a disease process affecting your memory areas, you tend to present with memory problems early. And that's how Alzheimer's disease patients present, is with memory problems. As opposed to people with frontotemporal dementias, their pathology is a little different. So they either have tau protein deposition or TDP43 protein deposition. Again, you wouldn't know that till autopsy, but those proteins deposit mostly in the frontal and temporal areas. Now, what symptoms do you get with that? Well, again, it's based on the fact that they're in the frontal and temporal areas. So if you start causing decline of the frontal areas, think of the frontal areas as, planning or thought. A lot of times people will say that's where your filters are. That, when you're thinking something, but you don't say it out loud because it blocks that. Things people think I don't have. By the way, I have frontal lobes. I have filters. You'd be amazed at what doesn't come through those filters. But that's a different story. So anyway, when patients have difficulty with their filters, they often behave inappropriately, saying things they wouldn't normally say in mixed company, doing things they wouldn't do. And so that's the behavioral variant of frontotemporal dementias. Sometimes it affects those protein deposits, affect the language area specifically. And so the symptoms initially are just difficulty with speaking. That's actually what Bruce Willis has. Bruce Willis has a primary progressive aphasia. Again, we won't know the actual pathology, unfortunately, until autopsy. And he has significant difficulty speaking, even though maybe his memory is fine, his interactions are fine. So, okay. So over time, again, no matter where the protein deposits start, they eventually start spreading through the rest of the brain, and you start having other faculties affected. That's why by the end, everybody looks the same. Everybody's bedridden. They can't walk. They can't talk. They can swallow, eat, etc. But in between, how you develop symptoms depends on how those different parts of the brain are affected. One of the most common set of symptoms that people will get with dementia is something called Parkinsonism. Now, Parkinsonism is not Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease is another very specific neurodegenerative disorder caused by yet a different type of pathology, and that's from Lewy bodies. But Parkinsonism is a bunch of symptoms that looks like Parkinson's disease, but again, not Parkinson's disease. I'm going to show you another video of Biden while I speak, so you can kind of watch his actions while I describe them. And I might have to play the video over a couple of times while I go through things. But Parkinsonism, one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is bradykinesia. And so bradykinesia is just, if you break it down, is brady means slow, kinesia is movement, so slowed movement. So you'll see patients move slower, they'll walk slower. You can even see it in their facial expressions. So they'll have something called hypomimia, where their face looks kind of masked, or people will sometimes say they have a poker face. As things progress, their mouth will just hang open. Most of us walk around with our mouths closed. So the mouth hangs open. Also, other parts of the body, the muscles experience something called rigidity. And it's basically a stiffening of the muscles. And again, you can see that when people move around. Usually there's a looseness, an appropriate looseness to the muscles. For example, when you walk, your arms swing a little bit, or if you're just standing there, your arms kind of hang relaxed a little bit. But people with rigidity, their arms don't swing much. When they stand, their hands are held just a little higher. Again, all things you can really see in Biden. So, okay, so here we go. What does he have? Does he have Alzheimer's? Maybe. Does he have frontotemporal dementia with primary progressive aphasia? Is this a language-oriented thing? Maybe. I don't know. And again, that's not the point, and we won't know, unfortunately, until it's too late. But it is pretty clear he has a dementia. Okay, now, before you get into a huff and say, oh, but the Goldwater rule, you can't diagnose him with a dementia. One, I can. Two, some of you might be saying, what is the Goldwater rule? So the Goldwater rule is something that was put in place in 1973 by the American Psychiatric Association, the APA. They basically said you could not offer a psychological opinion about individuals without physically examining them first. And the reason this came about and is named for Goldwater is because in the 60s, Barry Goldwater was running for president. And there was a, I'm sure, liberal magazine called Fact, ironic, called Fact. And in the magazine, they published an article interviewing a bunch of mental health experts. I think they were all psychiatrists, but some of them may have been psychologists as well, asking them loaded questions. What is his psychiatric diagnosis? And there was, just general things. Oh, he's brutal. He's brutal. My speech is fine. He's brutal. He's arguably an unhinged dictator. In fact, there's some specific quotes that I think were quite interesting. One person said that he was, quote, suffering from a chronic psychosis, end quote. Another said, quote, a megalomaniacal grandiose omnipotence appears to pervade Mr. Goldwater's personality, end quote. It goes on. There's others. My favorite is, quote, I believe Goldwater has the same pathological makeup as Hitler, Castro, Stalin, and other known schizophrenic leaders, end quote. Sound familiar? Oh, he's Hitler. I mean, you've heard me say this time and again, human nature doesn't change. Apparently, especially among the academic elites. He's Hitler, he's Hitler, he's Hitler. By the way, Hitler, Castro, Stalin, all left-wing progressives. But that's the Goldwater rule. But the Goldwater rule applies to a psychiatric diagnosis. It does not apply to neurological diagnoses. I'm not trying to get into his psyche. I'm not trying to evaluate his mind. That you do need to interact with. I'm looking at objective findings that can show me neurological disorders. It's like saying an orthopedic surgeon can't diagnose a broken leg when Joe Theismann gets hammered on the field. Anyway. Okay, so going back, Biden clearly has some type of dementia. So when people say, you can't vote for Biden, he's too old, or maybe he's too old to run for president. I don't care how old you are. Again, I realize there's health issues. The older you are, the more likely you are to just die, period, right? Cardiovascular issues, strokes, what have you. But age is not the issue. If you are old, but you are quick and sharp and right on top of your game, that's fine. The issue isn't age, it's dementia. But that's also not the issue. I don't care about his dementia. And you might say, well, why? So you don't care if a demented guy is running the country? Well, not entirely, because Biden, while demented, is not running the country. Everything you don't like right now about the country is not because a demented person is making decisions. Biden's making no decisions. Everything is made above him. I don't know by who. We can have that discussion all day long. But the country is in shambles because he is perfectly implementing the leftist, progressive, Democratic Party principles. So what's bad? Well, the economy's horrible, right? Prices are through the roof. Go to the grocery store, pick up eggs, milk. Housing is up. It's horrible. Gas prices are ridiculous. By the way, gas prices being up is not just an unfortunate happenstance from Democratic ideas. Gas is up because they want it to be up. It was not that long ago when Biden's Secretary of Energy, Chu, I think Stephen Chu, but Chu, him, and he said, it was an interview with the Wall Street Journal, and he was talking about he wanted gas prices to rise over the next 15 years. Wanted. In fact, the actual quote is, somehow we have to figure out how to boost the price of gasoline to the levels in Europe. We want to boost the gas prices? By the way, the levels in Europe at the time were about twice that as the levels in the United States. Minimally $8 a gallon, if not 9 or 10, depending on your sources. And how are they doing that? Well, they're cutting down on drilling, they're banning drilling, they're reducing drilling, drilling, right? They're pushing everything electrical. They want to push the agenda to charge more for using gas, right? Carbon credits. And why is that bad? You might say, well, okay, I know I don't want gas prices to go up per se, but maybe it's good if it gets us to electricity. But getting us to all electricity is also bad. Because prices will also go up when everything is electric. In fact, that's also planned. Let's go back to Obama himself. And in an interview, they were asking about his cap and trade plan. And he said, quote, "If somebody wants to build a coal-fired power plant, they can. It's just that it will bankrupt them. Under my plan," Obama, "electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket." So they want gas prices to go up, so you move to electricity, which will necessarily skyrocket those prices. Well, why would those skyrocket? Well, a couple reasons. Number one, when you have a monopoly on something, you can do whatever you want. You just increase the prices. But number two, just naturally, and don't they like nature? Naturally, competition brings prices down. So if you have a monopoly, prices go up, but you also have control. So, and this we're seeing right now. So literally on June 7th, 2024, the Biden administration, not Biden, the Biden administration tightened fuel economy standards for cars and SUVs. They issued rules that officials estimate will push the average efficiency of new vehicles beyond 50 miles per gallon by 2031. Now, again, you may say, well, isn't that good if they make rules that cars are more efficient? Well, it sounds good when you first hear it, but what does that entail? So everyone would want car engines to be more efficient and go further on the gas they have. In fact, I don't think anyone would be happier than the car manufacturers themselves, right? You make a car that is extraordinarily efficient in its gas utilization. I can't think of a bigger selling point. You're going to dominate the market. I mean, you'd love that. So you don't need the government making you do that. They're already working on that. So if they're not doing that enough by themselves, if it's literally physically not capable now, well, how else do you make a car go 50 miles to the gallon? Well, you make the car lighter. And what does that do? Well, that just kills people. Because when the car's lighter, it cannot withstand a crash nearly as well. And this is very well known. So these mileage standards for cars, they're called CAFE standards. These have been in place for years, decades. And there was a study years ago, Mark Jacobson, who was an economist at the University of California, San Diego, when he was looking at the standards that made the fuel efficiency requirements that started in 1978 that would boost over years to, I think at that time was 2016, said that over that time, you'll see an additional 149 fatalities per year. Well, if we can only save one life, right? So, okay. Gas prices go up. Get rid of gas. Electricity prices go up. Electricity prices go up. People die more. But the other thing is we can't even do it. Like our electrical grids can't sustain it. Even right now, just with having more electrical cars out. I mean, even before the electrical cars, California was having rolling brownouts. Electrical grids were crashing. You just can't do it. So it's everything bad. And by the way, your last hurrah, so to speak, might be, all right, so gas prices go up, electricity prices go up, people die, but at least I'm saving money. I'm not spending as much money on gas. Well, technically, yes, you're not spending money on gas if you're not paying for gas. But guess what? They'll get you another way. They're always going to get you. So Governor Newsom now is looking at a road tax on electric cars because you can't get the tax. You're losing revenue on no gas. So you got to get it some other way. They're always coming for you. They will always come for you. All right. Enough about the economy and gas. It sucks. But not because of Biden. It's because of the left. Illegal immigration. Boy, that's been an issue forever. So again, not migrants, illegal immigration. So Trump had that controlled better. Once Biden came in, the administration got rid of, I think, like 54 executive orders so that all these illegal immigrants could come in. Under this presidency, by the way, 7.2 million illegals under Biden. And again, it's not just Biden. All you have to do is watch any talk show, news program, listen to any artist or actress talk about them, and they'll tell you, well, we need these people. They got to do all the stuff Americans won't do, right? They got to pick our crops or clean our toilets. They often say the quiet part out loud. Conservatives don't want this, right? Conservatives say, look, they're taking jobs from underworked Americans. They are crowding our schools. They're costing our taxes a ton because we have to apparently put them up in luxury hotels and give them Obama phones. Crime is going up. They're bringing in drugs. There's human trafficking. It's a disaster. To the right, the left, they're rolling out the red carpet. Transgenders, that's another issue, right? So transgenders is not a conservative thing. It's not a Biden-specific thing. It's the left. The transgender story hour, teaching and grooming your kids, that's not Biden. Think about when Governor DeSantis in Florida was trying to keep pornography out of 9-year-old hands in schools, and everyone is calling it the Don't Say Gay bill, which, by the way, never said don't say gay. But you had everyone, talk show host, news anchor, Mark Hamill, right, saying, tweeting, gay, 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 like, okay, you can say gay in the Don't Say Gay bill, which doesn't exist. So again, not Biden, it's the left. Crime. Crime is way up. All right. Don't let anyone tell you any differently. Crime is why businesses are leaving cities, why people are leaving cities. And people might tell you, oh, well, no, if you actually look at the data, crime's going down. No, crime is not going down. Crime reporting is going down. The biggest cities that have these issues, New York, Chicago, LA, they just stopped reporting their crime statistics to the FBI. That doesn't mean it's not happening. In medicine, we have a line. You can't have a fever if you don't take a temperature. Kind of same idea. Well, okay, but nobody wants crime. Well, you say that, but all the left policies increase crime, right? Defund the police. There's no one there to protect you or arrest criminals. No cash bail. Hey, you get arrested, you're right back out committing another crime. Get arrested again, you're right back out again. Revolving door. Home and property owners, they get arrested for protecting themselves. Good Samaritans get arrested for protecting others. Literally, no one even arrests anybody if you steal something under $1,000. And if they do get arrested, you got Soros-funded DAs who either just don't prosecute or maybe change a felony to a misdemeanor. Well, unless your name is Donald Trump, in which case you get a misdemeanor and they upgrade it to a felony. Again, different show. How about internationally? War's up, which, again, not good. The Ukrainian war is ridiculous. Middle East is going bananas. China's knocking on Taiwan's door. Now, you might say, well, that's not really a left thing. That's a right thing. Well, it's really pretty bipartisan. I would say the only one who really did a great job about keeping the world peace was Trump, right? Remember how everyone said, oh, Trump's going to cause World War III if he gets elected. Actually, he started 0 wars. He made unbelievable strides in the Middle East. And then Biden comes in and all these wars start up. So if they're telling you again, Trump's going to start World War III, it's like, well, he didn't do it the first time. Biden's doing it now. I don't know why you think it's going to be different. Hey, COVID lockdowns, forced vaccinations. Again, that's all the left. All the conservatives wanted freedom, right? You can get a vaccine if you want to. You don't have to. You can stay home if you want to. You don't have to. You can wear masks if you want to. You don't have to. The left, got to wear masks. Can't go out. Can't go to school. Got to get this vaccination. Now, granted, we weren't as bad as countries like Australia or Canada that literally had concentration camps to lock people up. But again, that just proves my point, right? It's not a Biden thing. It's a leftist issue. How about free speech? Free speech is banned on the right. Try going to a college campus or a university if you're a conservative speaker. They'll shout you down. They'll protest you. They've burned their own buildings to make sure you can't perform. Universities have withdrawn invitations because they're afraid that the protesters will do damage. Again, that's backwards logic, right? You're fine, but the protesters, you're gonna basically help out the protesters by preventing you from going. Great. Higher education. Podcasters kicked off YouTube. That's why I run this on Rumble too. I don't know how long they're going to let me stay on YouTube. Again, have I said anything that's wrong or harmful or in anything in any way? No, it doesn't matter. You've had podcasters struck because they've brought in CDC data. Watch Louder with Crowder. They got struck because Gerald Morgan brought up CDC data about how children were actually much more likely to die from the flu than COVID. Now, that's true, but they didn't like that being presented, and so they struck them. People are getting canceled all the time. It's absurd. Again, that's not Biden. That's the left. All right, look, long story short, so many things are going wrong right now, but it's not because you have a demented president. It's because you have a presidential administration that is implementing all of the left's plans. I can't stress that enough. So what is the point? Why am I bringing this up? Because you might say, well, I wasn't going to vote for the demented guy anyway. Here's my concern. I don't necessarily think anyone's going to vote for the demented guy because I don't think he's going to be running. I still think they're going to pull him and they're going to put in, I don't know, Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris. Maybe they'll just step her up. Maybe somehow they'll convince Michelle Obama to run. I don't know. But my point is, don't vote against the Democratic Party because you don't want a demented president. Vote against the Democratic Party because their policies are horrendous. It doesn't matter who they bring in. Meet the new boss. Same as the old boss. Don't get fooled again. So I think I'll leave you with that. Thanks for listening. As per usual, if you like this, hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. But importantly, please at least share this episode. Spread this around. Post it on social media. I think it's really important. A lot of people need to understand this. One of the reasons I started this podcast was because I think there's occasional things that you see on other programs, whether it's news programs or opinion pieces, other podcasts that I say very similar things about. But I always feel that there's something else that they're missing. And this is a very important issue I don't think really anyone's solidly addressing. And that's, they talk about Biden's age and they talk about Biden's ability. But my point is none of that matters because whatever he's doing, he's perfectly implementing that policy, that leftist progressive policy. And that's what's killing America. So remember that, spread it around. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you again next time. Have a good one.